The night before my wedding, I accidentally overheard my fiancé talking to his friend. His childhood sweetheart had changed the bride's name on the wedding invitations to her own, while I'd been demoted to bridesmaid. When he realized the truth, he chuckled and said, "If my family hadn't pressured me so hard back then, Fei was the one I would have married. I owe her this. Let her make a scene." Either way, the bride standing on that stage on our wedding day will be fiancé. She can't run away. Outside the door, I felt as if I'd been frozen solid in an instant. After 7 years of feelings, I finally realized that to him, this was nothing but a trap I could never escape. I turned around silently and went home. I took off my veil and removed my makeup. My best friend called in a panic, saying the invitations had been printed wrong and asking what we should do. I looked at my pale face in the mirror, yet my eyes were clear and bright. For the first time I smiled. It's okay. Print them as they are. After all, I never planned to marry him anyway. The day Felix Gu's and my wedding invitations were printed, his childhood sweetheart Fei Shen snuck into the printing shop. She changed the bride's name fiancé to her own, Fei Shen. And my name? It was moved to the bridesmaid section. I only found out about this a week before the wedding, when Felix's best friend Du Siyuan told him the story with a playful grin as if it were a joke. Du Siyuan had a cigarette in his mouth, his smile suggestive. "Felix, if Fei keeps this up, won't everyone at the wedding actually think she's the bride? Now that would be a show." I happened to be walking toward Felix's office at that moment, carrying a cup of health-preserving tea I'd made for him. When I heard those words, my feet froze in place. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, I heard Felix let out his usual low laugh, lazy yet indulgent. Then, in a tone I'd never heard before, one full of tenderness, I heard him say, "Siyun, stop stirring up trouble. Fei's just being childish. She's only messing around." My heart sank. Du Siyuan clearly wasn't going to drop the topic. Messing around? This is your lifelong commitment we're talking about. Come on, what's really going on between you two? If things hadn't... There's no if, Felix cut him off. His tone was still casual, even a little teasing. "But Siyun, I might as well tell you the truth." He paused. His voice dropped slightly, but it felt like a blunt, icy knife, slowly slicing through my eardrums and stabbing straight into my heart. If my parents hadn't pressured me so hard back then, insisting I marry someone from an equal social background, Fei was the one I would have married. She's been upset with me all these years. She's suffered enough. This time, I owe her. Let her make a scene. Either way. He let out a cold chuckle, his tone chillingly nonchalant, as if he controlled everything. "On our wedding day, the bride standing next to me will be fiancé. She can't run away. Does it matter whose name is on the invitation? Does it matter whose name is on the invitation?" That one sentence hit me like a sudden blizzard. I froze instantly. The blood in my veins seemed to stop flowing, turning to ice. All this time I'd been carefully planning our future, overjoyed at the thought of becoming his bride. But to him it didn't matter who the bride was. All that mattered was that the position of Mrs. Felix Gu needed a puppet, someone named fiancé from an equal background to fill it. And Fei Shen? She was the moonlight in his heart, the one who could act however she wanted, the one he endlessly indulged with excuses like, "I owe her." Du Siyuan burst into knowing laughter, patting Felix on the shoulder. "Damn Felix, you're good. Tell me, isn't having the best of both worlds possible? Fei's head over heels for you and Freya's crazy about you too. Why don't you just..." I couldn't hear the rest of his vulgar words. I stood in the cold hallway holding that still warm cup of tea. I felt as if my heart was being torn to shreds by that one sentence, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but blood and flesh. I'd known Felix for 3 years and we'd been dating for 2. I'd always known there was a vague shadow in his heart. It was his childhood neighbor Fei Shen. She always called him Brother Felix in a sickly sweet voice. She'd fake being sick to call him during our dates, make him leave me to fix her plumbing, and post ambiguous WeChat moments on our anniversary, reminiscing about the good old days. Every time I complained even a little, Felix would ruffle my hair. With that ridiculously handsome face of his, he'd say, half helpless, "Freya, Fei-Fei's like my little sister. Her family spoiled her growing up. She doesn't mean any harm. Just let her be." I thought it was just sibling affection. I'd thought I was the one who'd made him drop his carefree attitude, the one he'd seriously asked to marry me. I'd thought my years of companionship and love had long replaced that vague shadow. Until this moment, when I heard him dismiss the entire meaning of me being his bride, in such a frivolous, matter-of-fact tone. It turns out I wasn't letting her be. I was stealing the spot that should have been hers. The warmth in my palm grew scalding, then slowly cooled. I looked down at the swirling brown liquid in the cup. It reflected my pale, ridiculous face. I didn't push the door open. I didn't put on that gentle, well-timed smile, bring the tea to him, and remind him to smoke less and take care of himself like I always did. I just turned around silently, holding that cup of tea that had lost all meaning. Step by step I walked away from his office door. My high heels clicked on the smooth marble floor, making an empty echo. Each step felt like I was stepping on my own broken heart. Back at the apartment we'd planned to use as our new home, our wedding photos taken just last week, still hung in the living room. In the photo, Felix was in a suit and tie, impossibly handsome. He had his arm around my waist, a smile on his lips, but his eyes were as deep as ever, impossible to read. Me. I leaned against him, smiling happily, my eyes full of hope for the future. How ironic. I walked to the dressing table. The woman in the mirror had perfect makeup, wearing the cream-colored dress he loved, the gentle and elegant look of Mrs. Gu he wanted. But this outfit he liked now felt like sticky paint, smothering me until I couldn't breathe. I raised my hands and slowly took apart my updo, removing the pearl hairpin I'd tried on in advance to match my wedding dress. Then I picked up a cotton pad and scrubbed off my foundation, eyeshadow and lipstick hard. Every stroke was filled with a masochistic sense of relief. When the makeup was gone, my pale but clean face was revealed. This was me, Freya. Not the proper polite prop he needed to satisfy his family's demands. My phone rang. It was my best friend Lin Su. Her voice was frantic. "Freya, something's wrong. I just saw the sample invitations from the printer. The bride's name is wrong, it's that bitch Fei Shen. Your name's in the bridesmaid section. What the hell is going on?" I looked at my red eyes in the mirror and slowly pulled into a cold smile. So it was true. Everything Du Siyuan had said was true. Even the invitations had already been printed. I took a deep breath and replied in an unusually calm voice, even with a hint of a smile. Su, it's okay." Lin Su froze on the other end. "Okay? Freya, have you lost your mind? How is this okay? Fei Shen must have done this. You need to tell Felix right now and make him." "No need," I cut her off. My voice was soft, but there was an unshakable resolve in it. "Leave it as is. Print the invitations exactly like this. After all." I paused. I watched the last bit of warmth fade from my eyes. Word by word I said clearly, I never planned to marry him anyway. After hanging up, the world fell completely silent. I opened the bottom drawer of the dressing table. Inside, quietly lying there, was a plain band ring. Asherji had stuffed it into my hand with red eyes before he went abroad years ago. He'd said, "Freya, if one day you're tired, or if someone makes you unhappy, put this on. No matter where I am, I'll come back to take you away." Back then I thought he was being silly. My heart was full of Felix. Why would I need him to take me away? But now I trembled as I held out my hand. I slowly slipped that simple yet heavy ring onto my left ring finger. It fit perfectly. My phone lit up. It was a WeChat message from Felix, his usual tone. Affectionate, as if he were doing me a favor. "With me tonight to pick out a birthday gift for Fei. She's been talking about that bag for ages. You have good taste, help her choose." A second message followed. "The invitations are printed. I asked Siyuan to pick them up. I'll bring them to you tonight." I stared at those messages. It was as if I could see his face through the screen, so sure he was in control, giving me a little tenderness as a gift. He probably expected me to reply, okay, like I always did even though I'd be upset. He expected me to force a smile and help him pick out a gift for his moonlight. He expected me to feel wronged when I saw the altered invitations to question him, and then let him brush me off with a few words, "Don't be silly," or "Faye's just my sister." He must have thought I loved him so much that I'd endure anything. That I'd show up at the wedding on time like a good girl and fulfill this equal background ceremony he needed. Felix, you're wrong. This time I won't come to you to make a scene. Because I won't be the bride at this wedding. But whether you'll be the groom, well, that's still up for debate. I picked up my phone and replied calmly. After typing that single word, good, I tapped open my chat window with Asher. Our last conversation had ended 3 months earlier with a brief message he'd sent. I heard you're getting married. Congratulations. This is truly what you want. Back then his words had struck me as unnecessary meddling, even a touch presumptuous. Of course I was happy marrying Felix was the culmination of years of longing. Now that hesitant phrase, if this is truly what you want, felt heavy with unspoken meaning I'd been too blind to see. I took a deep breath, my fingertips hovering over the cold screen. I typed a line, deleted it, and repeated the cycle until only the simplest message remained. Are you there? The reply came in seconds. Anytime for you. Those 5 plain words, no dramatic exclamation points, no frills, hit my chest like a solid lifeline, cutting through the icy wave of betrayal threatening to drown me. Tears blurred my vision instantly. Not from grievance, but from the sudden realization that even in this moment of universal betrayal, someone still kept a light on for me. I fought back the tightness in my throat and hit the call button. The ringtone barely finished its first chime before he answered, his familiar voice laced with faint urgency. Freya? What's wrong? Background noise hummed behind him, faint airport announcements, the murmur of crowds. Asher. My voice trembled despite my efforts to stay steady. Do you still mean what you said before? A beat of silence, then his tone hardened into unwavering resolve, sharp with quiet determination. Every word. Tell me where you are. I'll be there immediately. I'm still at the apartment. I sniffled, wiping my eyes. But Asher, I don't want to run. They don't deserve to get off that easily. I recounted everything, the altered invitations, the conversation I'd overheard outside Felix's office, speaking quickly but clearly. His breathing grew heavier on the line. I could almost picture him, jaw clenched, eyes cold with anger, yet he let me finish without interruption. When I fell silent, he paused for a few seconds before responding, his voice calm enough to steady my nerves. I understand. Whatever you want to do, I'm with you. They want to play this switch and bait game? I stared at the plain band on my ring finger, my gaze hardening. Let's make it bigger. Asher. Would you dare to marry me instead? A soft intake of breath came through the receiver. Then without hesitation he answered, his voice brimming with reverent sincerity. It would be my greatest wish. After hanging up with Asher, I sprang into action. First, I contacted Linda, the head of our wedding planning team and my former college senior, known for her efficiency and trustworthiness. I told her bluntly, the wedding would proceed as scheduled, but the groom would be different. Every detail needed to stay strictly confidential, especially from Felix's side. Linda gasped sharply on the other end, but her professionalism kicked in quickly. Freya, are you sure? This isn't something to take lightly. What about the Gu family? I'll handle the Gus. My tone was calm but firm. Linda, you're the only one I trust. I'll double all fees, including any breach of contract costs. And I need you to help me with one more thing. I lowered my voice and outlined my plan. Linda was quiet for a moment, then replied resolutely, Done. Freya, I'm with you. That scumbag deserves to pay. Leave everything to me, I'll make sure this is a perfect wedding. Next I called my father. When he heard what had happened, his voice shook with rage. That arrogant bastard. Do they think they can humiliate my daughter like this? Freya, you did the right thing. I'm fully behind you. I've watched Asher grow up. He's 100 times better than that conceited goo Felix. I'll call Asher's father right away. With these two critical pieces in place, my confidence steadied. Now it was time to play the part. That evening, I met Felix as planned to pick out a birthday gift for Shen Feifei. When I saw him, he wore his usual air of detached elegance, as if the cruel conversation I'd overheard that morning had never happened. He even held the car door open for me, a rare gesture, and asked casually, "Did you wait long?" Once, such small acts of consideration would have made my day. Now they tasted like bitter irony. I shook my head, sliding into the passenger seat, and pasted on a flawless smile, warm but tinged with subtle fatigue. "No, I just got here too." On the drive to the boutique, Felix seemed in high spirits, even commenting on the weather. I played along, responding politely while laughing inwardly. He must have assumed I'd seen the absurd invitations by now. Yet my composure confirmed I was exactly the kind of obedient, sensible Mrs. Gu he needed. At the store, I devoted myself to choosing the limited edition bag Feifei had been craving, even suggesting thoughtfully, "Feifei has such fair skin, this cherry blossom pink suits her better than the classic style. It's more unique." Felix looked at me, a flicker of surprise crossing his face before softening into something like approval. He nodded. "You always have good taste. This one then." When he pulled out his card to pay, the gesture was as casual as buying a cup of coffee. I watched him, then spoke up gently. "Felix, have the invitations been printed? Did Siyun pick them up? I'd love to see them." His hand paused imperceptibly mid-swipe, then resumed. He handed the card back to the clerk and turned to me, his tone casual, deliberately nonchalant. "Siyun's always so careless. Probably hasn't finished them yet." Why the sudden interest? Predictable. He wanted to hide it, or worse, thought it was trivial enough to ignore. I lowered my lashes, masking the coldness in my eyes, and kept my voice soft. "Just feeling excited, I guess. It's our wedding after all." Felix reached out, as he often did, to ruffle my hair. This time I leaned away, barely noticeable but deliberate. His hand froze in midair. The air stilled for a heartbeat. I looked up, letting a hint of vulnerability, and unease creep into my expression. "Felix. You'll always treat me well, won't you?" Felix studied me, his dark eyes churning with unreadable emotions before settling into patronizing reassurance. He withdrew his hand, shoving it into his trouser pocket, and answered with the confident certainty of someone who controlled every outcome. "Of course. Stop overthinking." He thought I was worried about my place as his bride, jealous of Feifei. He had no idea our definitions of treating me well had long diverged. And that carefully crafted vulnerability, that tiny flinch away from his touch, would only confirm in his eyes how deeply I loved him, how dependent I was. A bride's normal jitters, harmless and even endearing. How arrogant. After buying the bag, we returned to the car. As if suddenly remembering something, Felix grabbed an elegant gift bag from the back seat and handed it to me offhandedly. "Oh, right. Got you a little something too." I opened it to find a Van Cleef & Arpels clover bracelet, not cheap, but a stark contrast to the lavish limited edition bag he'd bought Feifei on a whim. And the style, I noted bitterly, was far more suited to Feifei's taste than mine. Once this would have made me ecstatic, proof he cared. Now it felt like a token gesture, a pacifier for his official bride, a reward for my obedience. "Thank you. It's beautiful." I smiled, fastening it around my wrist, my heart cold as ice. He glanced at the bracelet, seeming satisfied with my compliance, and mentioned casually, "Feifei's been in a bad mood lately. I'll need to spend more time with her before the wedding. Could you handle the preparations on your own? I know it's a lot." The audacity of his entitlement took my breath away. I ran my finger over the cool clover charm and looked up at him, my smile still perfect, warm, understanding, uncomplaining. "Of course. Go take care of her. I'll handle everything for the wedding." Over the next few days I played the part of the busy, compliant bride flawlessly. True to his word, Felix rarely appeared, claiming he needed to comfort Fei-Fei's fragile mood. I welcomed the solitude. It let me focus entirely on planning my wedding with Asher. Asher worked with breathtaking efficiency. Drawing on all his connections, he'd cleared every legal hurdle in record time and secretly hired a top security team to ensure nothing went wrong on the big day. We even met briefly at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of the city. He'd lost weight since I'd last seen him, his features sharper, the boyish softness of his youth replaced by quiet poise and resolve. But when he looked at me, his eyes still held that same unguarded warmth and something deeper, something he'd never quite hidden. "Everything's almost ready," he said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside were detailed schedules and contingency plans. "Linda's been amazing. The venue, staff and you, tongue stay the same, only the groom's name and details have been swapped with mine. Your father and mine have already quietly informed all our trusted relatives. They'll play along." I flipped through the plan, feeling a weight lift from my chest. "What about the Gu family?" The Gus received the original invitations. "They're probably still reveling in the fantasy of marrying such an obedient daughter-in-law." Asher's lips curled into a sardonic curve. "As for Du Siyuan, he's too busy helping Gu Felix with his shady business deals to care about where the final invitations ended up." He paused, his gaze softening with a hint of concern as he looked at me. "Freya, are you certain about this? I mean, if you want to stop now, it's not too late. I can take you away anywhere you want to go." I shook my head, my eyes fixed firmly on the bustling traffic outside the window. "No, Ascher. Running won't solve anything. They've made me suffer for years, treating me like a fool. I need to stand face to face with them and set things right. This isn't revenge. It's closure." Asher fell silent for a moment, then gently took my hand resting on the table. His palm was warm and dry, a steadying force that calmed my nerves. "All right. Then I'll stay with you and we'll see this through to the end." 3 days before the wedding, Shin Fei-Fei showed up at my door uninvited. She stood outside my apartment holding an elegant pastry box, dressed in a white dress, her eyes red-rimmed and her expression fragile as if she'd been deeply wronged. "Sister Freya, am I disturbing you?" Her voice was soft and sweet, laced with careful deference. I stared at her performance, a cold laugh echoing in my mind. What a waste of talent, she should be competing for an Oscar. "Fei-Fei? What are you doing here?" "Come in quickly," I said, pasting a flawless look of surprise and warmth on my face as I stepped aside to let her in. She walked into the living room, her gaze casually drifting over the wedding photo of Felix and me hanging on the wall. A flash of triumph flickered in her eyes before she masked it with guilt. "Sister Freya, I'm here to apologize," she said, placing the pastry box on the coffee table and twisting her hands nervously. "About the invitations. I really didn't mean for them to be printed wrong. It's all my fault. I went to the print shop to check the samples that day and I must have mixed them up by accident. Felix Gidge already scolded me for it." Her eyes welled up with tears as she spoke, making her look on the verge of crying. "Sister Freya, you aren't angry with me, are you? I truly didn't do it on purpose. I know I'm not good enough for Felix Gidge. Just being able to stay by his side as his sister is enough for me. Please don't fight with Felix Gidge over this. He really loves you." What a touching display of remorse and self-sacrifice. Once upon a time, I might have been fooled by her act, even comforted her in return. But now watching her Jingdam performance only filled me with disgust. I picked up one of the macarons she'd brought, taking a small bite. It was cloyingly sweet. I set it down, grabbed a tissue to wipe my hands and spoke in a calm, even tone. "Fei-Fei, what are you talking about? Why would I be angry with you?" Fei-Fei looked taken aback. She clearly hadn't expected this reaction. I smiled at her, continuing, "Mistakes like mixing up samples at the print shop are unprofessional, but it's fine. Felix already told me it's just a small hiccup. He doesn't care, so naturally neither do I." I emphasized the words, "he doesn't care," and sure enough, a flicker of resentment and panic crossed Fei-Fei's face. She'd probably hoped I'd fly into a rage or at least sneer at her, so she could play the victim in front of Felix even more effectively. But I refused to play by her rules. I stood up and walked to the wine cabinet, pouring myself a glass of water. With my back to her, I spoke in a tone as casual as if we were discussing the weather. Besides, does it even matter whose name is on the invitations? My voice mirrored Felix's almost exactly. Feifei's head snapped up, her eyes wide with disbelief. I turned around, leaning against the wine cabinet and swirling the water in my glass. My smile widened as I spoke, my words laced with hidden meaning. After all, on the wedding day, everyone will see who the real bride is. Some people might have their names printed in big letters, but in the end, they'll always be nothing more than a shadow in the dark. Feifei's face turned deathly pale. She stood up abruptly, her fingers clutching the hem of her dress so tightly her knuckles whitened. The fragile, innocent act vanished completely, replaced by humiliation and venom in her eyes, her true self exposed. "Xia Freya you. What about me?" I raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "Feifei, why do you look so pale? Are you feeling unwell? Should I call Felix to come pick you up?" I deliberately mentioned Felix as if pouring salt on her already bleeding wound. She glared at me, her chest heaving with anger. After a long moment she ground out through gritted teeth, "No, I'm fine." With that she fled the apartment in a hurry, so flustered she forgot to take the pastry box she'd brought. I watched the door slam shut behind her, my smile fading into cold mockery. Couldn't handle that? The real show hadn't even started yet. "Shen Feifei gu Felix, every humiliation and trick you played on me, I'd repay it all with interest on the wedding day." I pulled out my phone and sent Asher a message. Fish took the bait. "Seems someone can't wait to see me make a fool of myself." Asher replied immediately, 3 concise words. "We'll watch." Shortly after Feifei left, Felix called. His tone carried a faint edge of irritation, but more than that, it was filled with condescending accusation. "Freya, what did you say to Feifei? She came crying to me saying you mocked her, called her a shadow in the dark?" Typical. She wasted no time running to him. I held the phone and walked to the window, gazing at the stream of car lights below. My voice was calm, with just the right touch of waitress vulnerability. "Felix, I was only comforting her. I told her it didn't matter if the invitations had the wrong name, you didn't care, so I didn't either." Maybe I didn't phrase it well and Feifei misunderstood. I paused, lowering my voice to a soft, almost tearful whisper. "Or do you really think I'm the kind of person who would deliberately pick on her?" Turning the tables, another trick I'd learned from Feifei. Sure enough, Felix fell silent for a few seconds. He'd probably never expected me to turn the accusation back on him, let alone act so hurt. He was used to me swallowing my pride when it came to him and Feifei. Now this small display of emotion must have surprised him. Maybe even stroked his ridiculous male vanity, making him think I still cared deeply about him. When he spoke again, his tone had softened, filled with his usual patronizing reassurance. "That's not what I meant. Feifei is young and sensitive. Just be more patient with her. There's a lot going on before the wedding. Don't let this trivial matter ruin your mood." Trivial matter. In his eyes, Feifei's tears were a big deal, but my feelings would always be insignificant. "I understand," I replied obediently, digging my nails into the palm of my hand. "You stay with her. I'll be fine." I hung up the phone and the vulnerability on my face vanished instantly, replaced by cold determination. "Enjoy these last few days of delusion, gu Felix, the fantasy of 2 women fighting over you." The day before the wedding, tradition dictated that Felix and I shouldn't see each other. He followed the custom perfectly, no calls, no messages all day. No doubt he was with his fragile childhood sweetheart, giving her one last round of comfort. As for me, I snuck over to Linda's studio for a final makeup trial and to confirm the wedding routine schedule. Looking at myself in the mirror, dressed in a pure white wedding dress, I felt a moment of disorientation. Once I'd thought I'd wear this dress for Felix, carrying all my fantasies of love and marriage. Now it was still beautiful, but it would witness something far more profound. An end to the past and the start of something new. "You look stunning, Freya," Linda said, standing behind me and gazing at my reflection. Her eyes were slightly red. "Tomorrow you'll be the most radiant bride there ever was." "Thank you, Linda," I said, squeezing her hand in sincere gratitude. Without her and Asher, I would never have had the courage to plan all this. "No need to thank me," Linda said, patting my hand. Her eyes sharpened with resolve. "Everything's arranged. Tomorrow, every sign, seating chart and program at the venue will have G. Asher as the groom's name. The MC's script has been completely revised too. The Gu family will be seated near the aisle so they can see every detail clearly." She leaned in, lowering her voice with a mix of excitement and vindication. "I even saved Feifei a special seat, right next to Felix's mother. Perfect view guaranteed." I couldn't help but laugh. "Linda, you really are just giving them a taste of their own medicine," she said, raising an eyebrow. "By the way, is Asher ready? He can't afford to mess up at the last minute." "He's more than ready," I said softly, a warm feeling spreading through my chest. Asher had even secretly gone to try on the groom's tuxedo. It fit him perfectly. He'd said he'd been waiting for this day for far too long. It was already dark when I left the studio. I'd just gotten in the car when my phone rang. The number was unknown. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Feifei's voice came through the line, no longer sweet and coquettish, but filled with triumphant arrogance and malice, barely contained. "Xia Freya, tomorrow's the wedding. Are you nervous?" I hadn't expected her to call again. My tone turned cold. "What do you want?" "Hee hee," she giggled, a sound like a snake hissing. "Nothing much. I just suddenly felt like telling you a secret. Do you know why Felix Gidge is marrying you even though he loves me?" I said nothing, waiting for her to continue her performance. "Because of that plot of land your family owns in the east of the city, you fool." Her voice dripped with mockery. "The Gu Group's next big project needs that land desperately. Only by marrying you will Uncle Gu hand over full control of the company to Felix Gidge. Otherwise, do you really think he'd put up with you all these years?" My heart sank. Even though I'd already given up on Felix, hearing this brutal truth, so low, so rooted in greed, felt like a cold icicle piercing my chest. So even this well-matched marriage was just a calculated transaction. Xia Freya had always been nothing more than a stepping stone for Gu Felix to climb to the top. So what? I forced myself to stay calm, my voice steady. "What are you trying to prove? That you're not even worth as much as a plot of land?" "You." Feifei sputtered, caught off guard by my counterattack. She grew furious. "Don't get so cocky. Xia Freya, I'm telling you, even if you marry Felix Gidge tomorrow, his heart will always be mine. You'll always be just a poor empty shell. I'll stay by his side forever, watching you waste away in loneliness." "Is that so?" I laughed softly. My laughter traveled through the phone, sharp with endless mockery. "Then let's wait and see. Shin Feifei, I hope you'll still be able to smile tomorrow." Without waiting for her response, I hung up and blocked the number. Outside the car window, the city's neon lights flickered, painting a picture of prosperity, cold and hollow. A plot of land? Greed? Perfect. Gu Felix, you didn't just trample on my feelings, you even coveted my family's assets. Very well, then tomorrow I'll give you a double celebration gift you'll never forget. I pulled out another encrypted phone and dialed Asher's number. "Asher, help me find detailed information on the Gu Group's plans for the East City land plot. And check the status of their recent cash flow. I want to give Gu Felix a wedding gift he'll remember for the rest of his life." Asher's voice was steady and resolute on the other end. "Understood. I already have some leads. I'll get you the full details before tomorrow." On the wedding day, I woke up before dawn. The apartment was eerily quiet. My wedding dress had been sent to the hotel earlier. I got up and pulled back the heavy curtains. First light was breaking, painting the city in a soft golden glow. There was no nervous excitement of a bride-to-be. My heart was calm as still water. I applied light makeup carefully, hiding the last traces of tiredness under my eyes. In the mirror, the woman staring back had clear, bright eyes, sharp with the determination of someone burning their bridges. My phone lit up with a message from Felix, time-stamped 3 a.m. See you tomorrow. Brief, concise, and dripping with his usual patronizing arrogance. He probably imagined me lying awake, thrilled and replaying those few words like a precious gift. I swiped away the notification with a blank expression. See you tomorrow? Felix, will meet soon enough. The doorbell rang. It was Linda and her makeup team, right on time. They carried large cases, their faces wearing professional, joyful smiles. Ready for your big day, bride? Linda hugged me, whispering in my ear, everything's set. I nodded. Let's start. I sat at the vanity, letting the makeup artist work carefully on my face while the hairstylist styled my long hair. Throughout the process, I remained unusually quiet and cooperative, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on my lips. Even Linda couldn't help but murmur softly, Freya, you're calmer than I expected. Because I know exactly what I'm doing, I said quietly, watching myself transform into a radiant bride in the mirror. When my makeup and hair were done, I slipped into the pure white wedding dress. As the lace veil was gently placed over my head, the world around me seemed wrapped in a soft glow. But I knew beneath that glow, a blade was about to be unsheathed. My phone vibrated. It was Asher. I'm at the hotel. Guests are arriving one after another. The Gu family and Fei are here too, seated in their assigned spots. Don't worry, I'm with you. Attached was a photo taken from the lounge showing a corner of the banquet hall. It clearly captured Felix's parents and Shin Fei wearing a pink cocktail dress, her face brimming with undisguised pride and anticipation, sitting closely beside Felix's mother. I replied, wait for me. In the limousine heading to the hotel, Linda reviewed the schedule with me one last time. When the ceremony starts and the music plays, your father will walk you down the aisle. At the end of the flower arch, Felix was supposed to be waiting for you. But now, Linda paused, a spark of excitement in her eyes, it'll be Asher standing there. When your father places your hand in Asher's, the spotlight will shine on Asher's face, Tongbu Sensher, displayed simultaneously, on the big screen. We'll make sure every guest, especially the Gus, sees it clearly. I could almost picture the scene. Felix standing proudly ahead, waiting to claim his trophy, only to watch my father hand me over to another man. What a spectacular sight that would be. Won't Felix suspect anything? I asked. Not a chance, Linda smiled cunningly. I had someone tell him it's a surprise twist. The groom needs to stand with his back to the entrance, turning only when the bride reaches him with her father. It makes for more romantic photos. That arrogant fool will definitely think it's a little gesture you plan to please him, probably even think you're being thoughtful. She knew Felix all too well. What about the speech segment? As planned, no groom's speech, only speeches from the bride and both fathers. Your father's script has been polished, guaranteed to deliver plenty of surprises. Linda winked. Asher's ready too. After exchanging rings, he'll give a short vow with very clear implications. Everything was already woven into an invisible net, waiting only for the prey to step in. When we arrived at the hotel's exclusive bride's lounge, my father was already waiting at the door. He wore a crisp tuxedo. When he saw me, his eyes reddened instantly. He stepped forward quickly and squeezed my hand tightly. Freya, my daughter. His voice cracked with emotion. You've been wronged. Dad, I'm not wronged. I squeezed his hand back, feeling the warmth and strength in his palm. After today, everything will get better. My father nodded firmly, his eyes filled with support and resolve. A daughter of the Xia family isn't so easily bullied. I'll have your back today no matter what. There was a knock on the lounge door. It was the wedding coordinator who whispered to Linda. Ms. Linda, Mr. Gu is asking if the bride is ready? The ceremony will start soon. Linda looked at me and I nodded slightly. Tell Mr. Gu the bride is ready, we can start any time, Linda replied calmly. The coordinator left. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and lifted the curtain slightly, looking down. A long red carpet had been laid at the hotel entrance, with a flower arch standing tall. Reporters had set up their cameras, and guests arrived in elegant attire, chatting and laughing. This was a highly anticipated wedding. The union of the Gu and Xia families was a major event in the city's business circle. Gu Felix, you must be enjoying this feeling of being the center of attention, aren't you? Soon you'll learn just how hard you fall when you're standing that high. The lounge door opened again and Asher appeared in the doorway. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, standing tall and distinguished, eclipsing even Felix, who wore the same style of tuxedo nearby. When he saw me in my wedding dress, his gaze froze for a moment. Then his deep eyes swirled with indescribable emotions, admiration, compassion, and a heavy, solemn promise. He held out his hand to me, his voice deep and firm. Freya, are you ready? It's time for us to go out. I looked at his outstretched hand, then at my reflection in the mirror, veiled in white, and finally at the feast outside that was about to be turned upside down. Taking a deep breath, I gently placed my hand in Asher's warm palm. Let's go. The real show was about to begin. Inside the banquet hall, the lights sparkled and every seat was filled. A soft, romantic wedding march played, the huge crystal chandelier casting a dreamlike glow. The air was filled with the rich scent of flowers and champagne. Everyone smiled, looking forward to the grand start of this wealthy family's union. Felix stood at the end of the flower arch by the ceremony stage, his back to the entrance. Following Linda's surprise arrangement, he was supposed to wait until my father and I reached him before turning around. Even just his back radiated complacent confidence. His straight posture, neatly styled hair, and well-fitted custom tuxedo all screamed that he was the undisputed leading man of the day. He even turned his head slightly, murmuring something to Du Siyuan, his groomsman standing behind him. Du Siyuan immediately broke into a knowing, lewd smile. In the front row of the guest seats, Felix's parents wore polite smiles, chatting softly with Feifei beside them. Feifei had dressed up specially for the occasion, wearing a soft pink dress that made her look pure and innocent. She glanced up at Felix's back from time to time, her eyes filled with triumphant sweetness and expectation. She had probably already imagined the scene. When the music reached its climax, Felix would turn around, and when he saw me in my wedding dress, he'd wear a look of helplessness mixed with affection. And she'd respond with a gaze of forbearance and blessing. In her mind, this was just a secret game between her and Felix, while I, the Quran prop, was about to be cast aside. The MC's voice, warm and engaging, echoed through the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, please turn your eyes to the door of happiness. Let's welcome our beautiful bride today, Miss Xia Freya, with the warmest applause. Applause thundered. The heavy double doors of the banquet hall slowly opened. On my father's arm, I appeared at the end of the petal-strewn aisle. My veil was soft and hazy, my dress trailing behind me. The spotlight hit me instantly, making me squint slightly. I could feel eyes on me from all directions, filled with admiration, blessings, and perhaps malicious scrutiny from a certain corner. My father's arm was strong and steady. He patted my hand gently, whispering, "Don't be afraid, daughter. Dad's here." I nodded, gripping his arm tighter, and took my first step. Each step of my high heels on the smooth floor was calm and resolute. On either side of the aisle, relatives and friends smiled at me. I even spotted a few close girlfriends, secretly giving me a "you've got this" gesture. My gaze crossed the long aisle, fixing directly on the ceremony stage. Felix still had his back to me. He seemed to feel the stares and applause behind him, his shoulders relaxing slightly, a sign of someone who thought everything was under control. And not far beside him, in the spot where the groom was supposed to wait, originally empty, stood a figure. Asher. He had quietly taken his place without anyone noticing. Standing tall and straight, his gaze calm as he met mine. Our eyes locked in the air, silently exchanging strength and understanding. The music swelled to its climax. My father and I walked step by step down the short aisle, finally reaching the end of the flower arch, standing right behind Felix. According to the schedule, the MC should have spoken now, his voice brimming with emotion. Now please turn around, groom, and welcome your beautiful bride. But before the MC could speak, something unexpected happened. Asher, who had been standing quietly to the side, suddenly moved. He stepped forward, and just as Felix was about to turn around as planned, Asher reached me first. Facing my father and me, he bowed slightly, then under the stunned gaze of everyone held out his hand to me. At the same time my father released my arm. With complete resolve he placed my hand firmly into Asher's waiting palm. The change happened so quickly, so suddenly. Felix was supposed to turn around and my father was supposed to hand me over to him. But now my father had given me to another man. The hall fell into dead silence. Even the music stuttered for a moment. All applause and laughter ceased instantly. The guests stared wide-eyed, frozen in disbelief at this incredible scene. Many guests did a double take, wondering if their eyes were playing tricks on them, or if this was some bizarre new wedding tradition the planners had dreamed up. Felix, standing at the front, clearly sensed the unusual silence behind him and the stares of shock and confusion fixed on his back. The moment for him to turn around had supposedly arrived. Yet something felt horribly wrong. Frowning slightly, a hint of annoyance at the interruption creeping into his expression, he slowly turned around. What followed was a transformation of his face. From complacent confidence to a faint frown, to complete and utter freeze when he saw the scene before him, me in my wedding dress, my hand clasped tightly in Asher's. And my father standing beside us, his face solemn and resolute. Felix's pupils contracted sharply, all color draining from his face. For the first time those eyes, usually so distant and in control, were filled with pure, unguarded shock and bewilderment. He even glanced subconsciously at Du Siyuan beside him, as if checking if he was hallucinating. Du Siyuan's mouth hung open, his face a picture of utter disbelief. In the front row of the guest seats, Shen Feifei's sweet smile froze instantly. She shot to her feet, screaming in disbelief. Felix Gidge. What's going on? Her shriek cut through the silent banquet hall like a knife. Felix's mother clapped a hand over her mouth in shock, while his father's face turned livid. Just then the MC's calm, firm voice boomed through the speakers, reaching every corner of the hall. It seems our bride has made her most important choice. Let's congratulate this new couple, Ms. Xia Freya and Mr. G. Asher, with a round of applause. At the same time the huge background screen, previously looping photos of Felix and me, suddenly switched. In their place appeared a set of new wedding photos, taken secretly of Asher and me. In each one we smiled at each other, our eyes filled with warmth and unspoken understanding. Boom! The banquet hall erupted into chaos. Whispers turned into gasps of disbelief and excited chatter. Reporters' camera flashes went off like crazy, capturing this dramatic scene from every angle. Felix stood frozen in place, like a puppet whose strings had been cut. His eyes were fixed on Asher's and my clasped hands, his handsome face contorted with the absurdity of his shattered world and burning rage. Through the soft veil I met his shocked, furious gaze calmly. A cold smile slowly curved my lips. Felix, are you enjoying this surprise? The silence lasted only a few seconds before it was swallowed by even louder commotion. The guest seats were like a pot of boiling oil, gasps, murmurs and even suppressed giggles of excitement filled the air. Reporters tried to push past security, their long lenses greedily focusing on Felix, whose face had turned deathly pale, and on Asher and me, standing closely together on the stage. What's happening here? Did the bride switch grooms? By God! The heir just got dumped in front of everyone. Isn't that the G family's son? How did Xia Freya end up with him? Look at Felix's face. This is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Feifei's scream tore through the air again. She tried to rush onto the stage, heedless of her dignity, but quick-thinking security guards stopped her. Felix Gidge. This is a lie. Xia Freya did this on purpose. She's crazy. How dare she? Felix's mother stood up abruptly, pointing at my father, her voice trembling with indignation. Xia Minghui. What is the meaning of this? Are you making a fool of the Gu family? Felix's father, his face still livid, pulled his wife back. She looked on the verge of fainting. His eyes were dark and menacing as he stared at the stage, clearly struggling to contain his overwhelming anger and humiliation. At the center of the storm, Felix finally recovered from the shock. His chest heaved with rage, his usually cold eyes now bloodshot, like a trapped beast driven to the edge. He fixed his gaze on me, his name dripping from his lips like ice shards. Freya. His voice was quiet, yet it carried a chilling venom that cut through the noise, piercing straight to me. Once upon a time that look and tone would have made my heart race, making me want to shrink back and explain myself. But now I simply met his gaze calmly. My eyes, visible beneath the veil, were steady, even faintly mocking. Asher stepped forward slightly, subtly shielding me behind him. He met Felix's murderous stare, his voice calm but unyielding. Mr. Gu, watch your tone. Today is Asher and Freya's wedding. Your wedding. Felix let out a cold laugh as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. He glanced around the chaotic hall, then his eyes, sharp as poisoned blades, settled on me. Xia Freya, tell me. What the hell is going on here? You'd better give me a reasonable explanation. He no longer bothered to hide his arrogance and anger. His tone was filled with condescending accusation, as if I were still the woman he could manipulate at will, someone who had to bow to his every demand. The MC tried to regain control. Ladies and gentlemen, please calm down. But no one was listening. I gently pushed Asher's protective hand aside and took a small step forward, facing Felix across the short distance between us. I could clearly see the veins throbbing in his forehead and the way his lips twitched with barely contained fury. I lifted my hand and slowly pulled back my veil. My made-up face was fully exposed under the lights. No tears, no signs of grievance, only cold calm and resolve. I took the microphone from the MC. My voice, amplified by the speakers, cut through the noise of the hall, silencing the chaos instantly. An explanation? I repeated the two words softly, looking at Felix. A faint but cutting smile curved my lips. Gu Felix, what exactly do you need me to explain? Shall I explain why you're not the groom standing here? My gaze shifted to Feifei, whose face had turned deathly pale and who was still struggling against the security guards. My voice dropped, sharp with undisguised sarcasm. Or shall I explain why the wedding invitations supposed to have the bride's name Xia Freya magically ended up with Shin Feifei instead? Gasps echoed through the hall. Every eye in the room snapped to Feifei, who was still being held back by security. Feifei froze, all color draining from her face. Her scream died in her throat, leaving only a terrified whimper. Felix's pupils contracted sharply. A flash of panic crossed his face, but he quickly forced a look of composure, snapping, "That's a lie. It was a mistake at the print shop." A mistake. I laughed, a sound amplified by the microphone, filled with endless sorrow and mockery. Is that really what it was, Gu Felix? My eyes locked onto his. I repeated word for word the conversation I'd overheard outside his office that day, mimicking his casual, arrogant tone perfectly. If my parents hadn't pressured me so hard to marry someone from an equal background, Feifei would have been the one I married. She's been upset with me all these years. She deserves this. Let her have her little tantrum this time. After all. I paused, watching as Felix's face turned even paler, as his parents' expressions shifted from shock to horror, and as Feifei looked on the verge of collapse. Then I spoke the final devastating line slowly and clearly. On the wedding day, the bride standing next to me will be Xia Freya one way or another. She can't run away. Does it even matter whose name is on the invitations? The banquet hall fell into a deathly silence. Not a single sound could be heard. Everyone was stunned into silence by this shocking twist, and the brutal truth it revealed. Felix looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. He stumbled back a step, staring at me in disbelief, his lips trembling but no words came out. His greatest arrogance and his greatest confidence had come from the belief that I was hopelessly in love with him. No matter how much he hurt me, he thought I'd swallow my pride and go through with the wedding as planned.